And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing episode number 7, The Glass Box of 30 Coins. It got real intense there at the end. Our party of 3 has come back together, Paco, Elena, and Manuel. And we're going to discuss, obviously, all the details as far as how they came back together. If you've not subbed to the channel, please do so. Hit that bell, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, do all that cool stuff. A lot of other content on the channel. Check that out. We'll be here even after 30 coins goes off the air, so stay subscribed and let's start.
Let's start with Paco.
You want to start with Paco?
All right. Paco has committed to scrub life. He's decided he ain't going to do nothing, that he just wants to divorce his wife and get to Elena at any means necessary. Nothing else really matters, apparently.
You just did like 4 songs in a row. Nothing else matters. I don't want no scrubs.
And Paco fits all those for some reason.
Yeah,
that's his role this week. He just decided, like, Elena's even not Elena. Marche's even trying to reason with him out of concern, and despite what she did at the end, I'm still Team Marche on this. I'm almost down to getting a T-shirt. Out of concern. She's trying to reason with this man. Take 50% of the business. What are you going to do with you? I don't know. I'm good with animals. Like, we've only seen Paco slaughter animals. I've never seen Paco even pet a goat or anything.
We saw him spray animal blood down a drain.
He's going to be hanging out the side of his best friend's ride, the sheriff, trying to holler at Elena.
He was trying to ask the sheriff to be his number 2 on this. Like, yeah, you got to help me out, man. You're my only friend here. And it's like, what's your plan? You only have one plan, and that's find Elena. You don't seem even concerned with the things that are happening in this town. You just
even her lawyer was like, we should not. We should take a break.
So it was just so. And we've talked about this, like it being very real to life. This is a very real to life kind of scenario where how pathetic Paco looks in his acting is very real to life. It is.
It is.
It happens all the time. And the crazy part is and I don't want to say this. Well, I do. The fact that he hasn't done anything with Elena yet. And for him to be is obsessed with the fact that he might be able to one day do something with her and shoot everything else in the foot and throw it out the window is mind-boggling to me. But it happens all the fucking time.
Yeah, and just his headspace, like you said, they haven't really done it. They haven't committed to. They haven't been on one date. They haven't really even gotten to know each other outside of these mysteries and stuff. Whereas, he's had a whole life with Marche. And it's. So it's weird he's gotten this attached over such a small period of time and just kind of, I guess, just visiting her for these mysteries with the coin and everything. He's like, you don't really know this person.
And up until a couple years ago, it's established that she was in a very committed, loving relationship with Mario. Apparently their situation was good. It was a good marriage, and when he was gone, she was very sad. So yeah, I don't know that there was any period of time outside of maybe the last year or so where they had interactions and he just was like, all right, it's you. You're the one. I'm going to throw everything away.
Well, yeah, and at that, he just kind of said everything he felt a while ago, before she left and everything, and she's like, yeah, well, whatever, I'm leaving town. So that should show him right there that, whatever he thinks they have, it's not that strong. So it's crazy for him to go to the lengths he has, just because he wants to be with Elena, or thinks he wants to be with Elena. It's because it's a pretty shallow relationship right now,
yeah.
And yet it seems like the next day and everything, they're talking about, splitting up everything, and he's going through a divorce hearing just at the spur of the moment. And Marche even points out, that she wants to try to work things out or figure it out, and she's willing to change, but Paco has already decided that he's done.
She got that. Let's work on this haircut.
Yep. Yeah, she did herself up just for this thing. She's got a new do and everything, and and she's all gussied up for this whole thing. And Paco's not feeling of it. He's like, yeah, you just have everything. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go look for Elena. It was weird. It's almost like she wasn't the only one that was possessed this episode.
And Elena's been ghosting him for several episodes now. She's not answering his calls, anything. Like she's clearly is not as invested in this as he is, in terms of them hooking up. Like I said, she ran off with Roque to Paris, no problem,
And yet Paco's so enamored, he doesn't care about how he's going to eat tomorrow. He doesn't care. But he has no job, he has no resources. Well, he has resources, but he's talking about giving up those resources.
When Marche put that card in the one hoodie, it was crazy because this entire season he's been in like these fancy ass looking sweaters and everything, and as soon as he gave up on life, he's wearing like a t-shirt and a hoodie like all the time now. Let's give up on life sweats.
Well, let's go into that card because we talked for briefly before we started recording about whether or not we thought she was being influenced, possessed, or was these actions being taken through free will? Was she doing it on her own? The one scene I'll say, and those actions being her putting the card in his shirt and then essentially allying with the Hell Priest or whatever you want to call him by the end, and then having an epic fight with Elena for the coin. There's a scene where she's on top of Paco and like you see her eyes sort of rolling back, and it sort of reminded me of what we've seen in some of the possession sequences. So I was thinking, well, maybe there's something else going on with her. I don't know. And what do you guys think?
I think personally that we call it is an angel or angel.
It's spelled that way.
Yeah, but the Hell Priest, I feel like he took.
I like Hell Priest.
Yeah, that's why I used it. It was a very good description. But when he basically was talking about, I felt like he was using what she was going through and trying to play to her sentiments. Like he's like, you can always keep trying. Elena's the one's coming between you guys. And I think that he was kind of egging her on. The fact that she went into the bar, the room above the bar, and was beating the shit out of Elena. I believe that she probably wanted to do that. Whether she would have acted on it or not, she doesn't seem like the one that would have done that. So that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like she was wanting to do these things, but as it came time to actually do it, I think the control that's been put on everybody when they're trying to get the coins was also being used on her.
Or when the town burned down Elena's vet shop. There was some kind of influence and control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to point back to that as well with the way her eyes rolled backwards. It's very reminiscent of, not just that, but the opening. The scene we have, we're at the crucifixions and you see like the Roman soldier and everybody's eyes just kind of roll in the back of their head like they're possessed. You see her do the same thing. But much like Spencer said, I think yes and no to a degree, because it seems to me that what happened here was, like Spencer saying, she already had an inclination to do some of this and to take it to a certain extent, but he gave her an extra nudge, and there's a level of control, but more so suggestion that leads into it, but she has to want it to some degree, so. He's leading her based on her own impulses and her own particular needs, and I think that's the case also because, like you mentioned in the scene where they're in the church and the same thing is happening to the town folks, only with a doppelganger of Father Manuel. He leads them on based on things that they know or already suspect, and their own personal needs. And again, that's how they lead. That's how they lead Marche in that scene to do what she does. Like he mentions that her husband is with this woman. So yeah, it's a sort of suggestion, but they need to have some sort of thread that they can pull on, so a little bit of that was Marche, but Marche is so well composed, she probably wouldn't have beat her up. She probably wouldn't have even, well, of course she wouldn't even thought to go for the coin at all at first. Like if anything, she may have argued with her, or demanded she leave. But I don't think Marche would have turned it into a fist fight. It seems out of character for her.
Oh, it is out of character, but I can tell you right now that with everything that was going on with her and Paco, she probably was getting close to the point where, regardless of whether she was having her strings pulled, she was getting ready to smack her.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. It was one of those things where I just kept wondering throughout. I thought the scene with the confession was really well done, and I kept trying to think, was it just him suggesting something and her doing it, or was there some kind of control being cast during that sequence? I that was the point at which I thought the influence had started, but yeah, I wasn't really sure. Anyone watching this or listening, give us your thoughts on that as far as her possession or not.
Well, yeah, and I'll say it was, it was how you would expect it from a demon, which is what I suspect this priest is. It's just like he had so many little truths in there, and some of the advice he gave, or at least the earlier advice,
was good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's telling her, he's like, "There's nothing wrong with being a strong woman, and that's what you are." And I'm like, "That's true." He's like, "You're strong, you're ambitious. There's nothing wrong with that." And then he started feeding her the lies after he flattered her and told her a little bit of truth. He mixed a little bit of what he wanted to see happen in there.
What do you think about Antonio? In this episode, it's odd. He seems to be very much aware of things, and yet he still sort of assists the Hell Priest with walling off the city using the magic tar from the jars. That's what I'll call it. Because he comes in the bar, he's like, "Yeah, shit's about to get really bad, everyone. This guy's doing this, this, and this." It's almost like he's there. He's aware of what's happening, but maybe he feels like a spectator observing. I don't know. I don't know how to gauge the character. What side? I don't think he's on either side. At really, I don't know.
Well, whenever you ask his opinion, or whenever anyone's having a conversation with him, it sounds like he's on the side of good, but it also seems like perhaps, and this is my thoughts on it. It seems like perhaps he's a conduit for something, or a medium, because he'll see these things, and sometimes he'll do something that seems a little shady, but whenever he's talked to personally, he's always assisting the heroes, and maybe he's easily influenced because of that. And I believe, like, didn't well, you guys have been calling him the Hell Priest, so I might as well too. But didn't he like touch his face the same way that he touches Marche's face when he asked him to do that, to finish his work for him, essentially?
I think so. The thing that was odd about it was he does it, and then he goes back to the bar and just like, "Yeah, this is what I did," and this, basically lays out, "Yeah, this isn't good, guys." And in other words, he seems very much aware of what it was he was doing.
Well, I don't think that he's there fully. I think that there is some other things going on, but I don't know that. I mean, I think he knows exactly what he did. Now, does he feel like maybe it was the right thing to do? And like you guys said, is he playing both sides? Is he playing what? My thing is that, we have he talked about being able to hear the bishops, the priests, the bad guys, and everything else. My thing is that what else can he hear? Is he hearing also the good side? Is it? So I don't know which voices he's going to basically listen to last, and which ones are the ones that are going to have a more important pull on him at the end of all this.
Or maybe I'll go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't feel he was 100% in control at that moment. I feel he was aware and that he completed the task, but I think whatever sort of suggestion he uses on on the town folks works better on him, in fact.
Or maybe it's one of those where he knows where things are supposed to go, and so he's just been playing ball this whole time. And I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, because it seemed like when he was in the hospital that someone was communicating with him directly, because he's talking.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's been an interesting character throughout the entirety of the series. Before we get to Manuel's adventures, the pig heads. I want to talk. Okay, so we had the jars that they brought into town. First, the witch was given some weird shit in a bag, and she's sprinkling it in the drains and stuff. Then we have the tar that builds the borders. The thing from the bag, I'm assuming, made the fog. And then the pig heads. They never really showed what that was for, I don't believe. They just put it on everybody's door. I'm assuming there's some kind of witchcraft purpose for it. Maybe we'll see it play out in the next episode. I didn't know if I missed something or if you caught something about the pig heads.
I don't know that they said what the pig heads were. I don't. I need to look it up because that was really weird, and I think that it's super important.
Yeah, I kept thinking about it too, because if there was something there, then we all missed it, because it seemed a little unclear what the purpose was. I imagine it'll come into play during the finale.
Yeah, that was my guess. Yeah, I love the. I've been calling them Mulder and Scully, but Maria and Christina. Just like it's Mulder and Scully. Come on. But they had a lot more in this episode where they're basically talking with the Laguna and just like, hey, this whole situation with the corpse that you claim is ancient or old from the Civil War. It's not. It's a couple of years old. It's we know it's Mario, and they arrest him. Now, when they arrest him, they're apparently in those small villages, their jail system, it's on the honor system, because you can just bust through that fucking door. I mean, he kicks that shit, not that hard, but hard enough. He runs out, jumps in a car, takes off. Great little chase sequence. But basically, he's like, look, there's some shit going on in this town. Y'all don't understand. If you stick around, you will start to, and you're not going to like what you see. And that's exactly how it plays out. They stay in the town, shit goes down, and now they're sort of in the mix as far as understanding, okay, yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. But yeah, him kicking through that door, I thought was great. That was funny.
Yeah, and as far as Laguna's role in all this, well, I'm sure he survived the car crash, so he will continue to have a role. It's I imagine once things are figured out, if the town is spared, if anybody survives this, which I imagine they will, most of them at least, they'll probably leave him alone. In fact, these two Mulder and Scully, type characters, they'll probably cover for a lot of their activities because they can't explain the more supernatural things that are going on in this town. But I imagine. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying I had to rewind so many times when the older one of the two was speaking, because she talks so fast.
She does, doesn't she? Yeah, I had to do the same thing. But I imagine that they're going to wind up being sort of allies in this particular fight, should they survive it, and that they'll be covering for Father Manuel and Laguna from here on out.
Yeah, if there's a second season, we don't know if there will be. As far as we know, next week is the series finale. But if it does continue, I think those two characters would play a role, like you said, maybe covering things up or helping the town deal with these situations. Yeah.
Well, I hope there's another season. I mean, we just literally pulled out the big guns right here and now, so. And right? Yeah, and I imagine we're just going to start to get an idea of the breadth of what Manuel is capable of at this point. So I'd hope for potentially more than one episode of that.
Speaking of Manuel, we get a lot of interesting scenes with him this week. First, we get sort of the moment he's still in the pit, and you could say it's a vision, it's a dream, whatever, but basically he's confronted by the young man that he exorcised and where the coin came out of his arm, and he shows him the bleeding hands, which plays a role later. They're taking him and these other two prisoners to be executed, and they're helped. Somebody comes and helps them. As far as tracking which group is which, I don't know. But one particular guy, I think the guy that spoke to him last week, is the one that helped free him. But what I do know is that upon trying to get to the border, a fucking super soldier of some kind chases down his car, dives through the window. There's a knife fight. I mean, shit gets crazy during that sequence. I mean, I rewound it a couple times. I was like, what the hell is going on?
It reminded me of like the Terminator, and Arnold's just trying to get away, and the thing's just like sprinting, and it's got the big arms that just turn into spikes, and it jumps on the back of the car. I was waiting for that to happen next. Like, I was waiting for a full T2 ripoff.
Well, yeah, you're not far off, because I was starting to wonder, with the way he was going. Good God, that man's dedicated, because like the way he was going after them and all the things he did to catch up. I was starting to wonder if it was like the anti-church, if he was working with them in some way, or if he was possessed. Because not only did he run down the car and bust in the window with his gun, but then decided to, while in the car, nearly die. Well, actually did die fighting all three of them. In hand-to-hand combat while the car's going. Like that's an insane level of dedication. Well, I think if he failed to chase down the car, they would have, whatever group he's with, they would have let it go.
Well, he really only fought two of them. The lady who was directly behind him just sat there screaming, didn't do anything. The guy who was in the back was Sven, I think was his name, was on the opposite side of the back seat, had to reach across and grab him because she was just like freaking out.
Right?
She was losing it.
But Sven's choking him. Father Manuel is fighting him and trying to grab the car, and he won't even stop fighting Father Manuel, who's driving the car, even though he knows there's a good chance, okay, I could die here if I'm fighting this guy, and he crashes the car. He doesn't care. He's so all about his mission that he's willing to take that chance.
I thought I was watching Death Wish 4. I was like, what the hell? And then the knife sequence, that hurt me. I was like, he grabs that knife and just like a badass breaks that shit in half and stabs him. And then, of course, going back to the vision or whatever earlier, where the hands are bleeding in the exact same way that he saw, which he wraps in a really cool, this black wrap later. It's a crazy ass sequence, and it leads to him coming back, to the town for the big finale, which we'll get to see next week.
Well, the way the hands were bleeding and everything, that just fits into the whole thing that we thought it was, that that this whole sequence was a test of his faith and sort of a Jesus allegory of the crucifixion. Well,
and we've talked about the director a couple times, because even in The Last Circus, as crazy as it was, as uncomfortable as scenes were, there was a couple amazing shootout scenes.
Yes,
and this felt a lot like that.
The sequence where he goes back to town and he gets his weapons, that reminded me of The Last Circus. Some stuff from that, because he goes back. They've been setting this up since the first episode. The fact that he has a stockpile of weapons. And he armors up, but the cool thing is it's not just all the tactical stuff and the weapons, pouring the holy water on the bullets, but he's putting back his priest outfit. So, this is sort of a holy warrior, if you will, a cleric, grabbing the machine guns and everything. The setup, I'm just like, and it was frustrating because I'm like, fuck, we're not going to get to see the payoff this episode. You knew that you wouldn't. I was like, they're setting this up for the next episode.
Well, yeah,
it was a cool setup though, right?
When they were all pressed up against the, I guess, invisible boundary, I was like, well, we're not going to find out whether or not they get out. And then when he pulled the little chain, I was like, oh shit. And then same thing, Brian. I was like, fuck, we're going to have to wait until next week to see him go batshit and start shooting stuff.
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. with the way that was set up too. You know, it also implies some other things. You know, because he walks in through the flames. I thought it was like the sort of demon priest first, but he walks in through the flames and pulls the cord. Like, and then the music from the intro kicks on. It was all very cool. But I mean, I guess it also represents the fact that he's no longer running for the supernatural part of this, and he's embraced all the supernatural things that he's seen over the years. Because I mean, given the way that building was burning, he had to be using some sort of supernatural power just to walk into it, literally through the flames.
Probably thinking to himself, I should have kept that spear.
He should have. Like, but I'm curious what tricks he has up his sleeves now, because and we we have all of our main players here back in town, so we're ready for this. But clearly, they're ready to face whatever this is head on. Elena included. Though I don't know if I would have just walked through that fog if I was her. Because I don't think she has a plan. Manuel has supernatural powers and whatnot.
Speaking of the fog, I don't know if you guys talked about this. I stepped out for a second. The car chase scene through the fog.
We briefly touched on it, but not specifically the chase. No.
My thing, that part to me, even with all the supernatural stuff, that was the biggest bullshit scene in this series, because not only were they driving on European Spanish roads, which they showed when he came into the town, when Paco came back to town, like he was driving an SUV and there was like maybe 3 or 4 inches on either side of that vehicle. So they're driving down like alleyway roads like that in the fog and didn't wreck until the exit. That's why I was like, I don't know, because they had problems seeing and walking like 3 feet in front of them, let alone driving at any speed.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, I was trying to figure it out in my head too. I was like, there's no way Laguna can only see like 2 feet in front of him. But then I thought, like, well, he's probably lived in this town his whole life, so he knows it like the back of his hand. But he is taking a serious risk here. What are the odds that he doesn't hit anybody? But I could that's at least that's the way I rationalize it. That he knows this town, and not only does he know this town, but they're able to follow him because they're close enough behind him. But
well, yeah, I didn't hate the scene. I thought it was cool because it was a really cool car chase scene that we could only see bits and pieces of, which I love the cinematography of that.
Well,
the fog.
What did you? What did you think about the way? Because I thought it was done really well. The fight between Elena and Marici. I thought it was a really well done fight sequence.
Absolutely.
And I think that this director does a good job with those kind of things, because even though there's a lot of supernatural elements in everything he's done, or everything of his that I've even seen parts of, there's a lot of supernatural elements and everything, but his real life elements that he puts into things, like that fight sequence. Murchie wasn't body slamming people. Now she hit a couple people hard enough to make them react, but it also wasn't so hard that it was like she was superhuman all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? Like
his stuff is cut in a way that you feel the impact of everything. Yeah. I love like you said, I like the way scenes are shot. That knife scene, the way that was shot was great. But yeah, that fight, the stairs. I mean, shit, man. I think I woke up with a bruise just watching that scene. I was like, God damn. Like and then of course, yeah, I love watching that and then thinking, well, how did they do that? And thinking about a few of the shots. I was like, I guess they had a stunt person just threw their ass down the stairs at one point. But yeah,
even the smacking the head on the stairs when Marici was roaring her. Like, how many times did they film? Like, I imagine they were still stunt people, but to me, it would be so difficult. That is a part of like the films when they do practical stuff like that impresses me the most, because not just the stunt people and everybody else who's involved. how they make it look so real and not die. Like they some of them get hurt and get injured, but I mean, and some of them have perished.
I'll say sometimes they do die. Yeah,
but normally it's like machine malfunction, like their chute doesn't go, or something like that. But for them to do that kind of stuff and suck us into their world is very engrossing. I enjoy it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's the sort of thing where with this type of show, you find oftentimes that they can get away with skimping on those kind of things and still leave you entertained. X-Files did it, and to a greater extent, shows like Supernatural do it, and yet still remain entertaining, or at least in the early seasons of Supernatural. But they don't give you action like this, or they don't put this much into like a chase. But they seem to go all out here, and it does kind of leave you wild how good and how visceral a lot of the action is. It's just it's surprising. It does leave you on the edge of your seat.
The word passion, like you could tell the filmmaker and the crew and the cast. There's a lot of passion in every shot, every scene. You can just tell. You can tell everybody's there putting in 110% on this particular series.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the acting is on point. The action is incredible. The writing's good. Anytime you think that there's a plot hole, it's addressed fairly early on, or it comes into play later. With the exception of the baby monster, we still don't know if that's alive in the sewers.
It might come back.
Maybe next episode, that might be why they trapped him in the town, for all we know.
What did y'all think of the church fire sequence? The way it was shot? Did you suspect that they were going to kill everybody in that scene? There was a moment where I was like, man, where's this going? Of course, the door busts open and everybody runs out at the end. Doesn't mean they'll be spared, but at least for now. I thought it was a dark turn.
I was just thinking what you said. All right. The witch was going around pouring stuff down into the sewer.
Yes.
That's where the baby spider lives.
Yeah.
Is that going to affect the baby spider? Is that going to piss the baby spider off? And then maybe the baby spider will be on Manuel's side. I don't know.
Yeah, is that like a ritual to draw it out, or
maybe the fog is just the baby spider's breath, or something?
Well, yeah, because God knows what that thing can do, honestly. But yes, I did kind of think that was going to happen, because the whole setup, only after the conversation between Marche and the priest, and I hate to reference anime on this. There are two animes, because I don't know if our whole audience, if many members of our audience will get the reference, but Berserk, one we've referenced quite a bit about this, and Full Metal Alchemist.
I'm a fan of both. Yeah.
Yes, you're a fan of both these.
Pretty big fan of one of those. I have a tattoo.
Right.
He's got a Pikachu tattoo.
No, I do not.
Well, and any other sort of property with this particular type of ritual, and at that a betrayal. This is the common Faustian bargain, where he sort of, like, whether she realized it or not, gave Marche the option of sacrificing everything she loves and is accustomed to for greater power.
So Griffith.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah, he made Marche pull a Griffith there. And who knows whether she'll leave it that. And it seems like he has plans for Marche. Which makes you wonder, is like, do they want, Marche to have that coin and be a member of this order?
We still don't know 100% what happens when they get the 30 coins. We can assume, okay, maybe the apocalypse, but what does that even mean? Like, what is the end goal? I'm assuming we'll find out or get an idea in the next episode, but yet they've still not completely said.
Well, they said, that they have having all of them would give them great power, but they didn't say what that great power, one, was going to be used for, or two, what it even is. So can it still be overcome? Like, even if they have the strongest betrayal, or what is it that could counter that? I imagine that they've said that there's been good relics and bad relics. If this is the worst relic, what's the best one that could counter it?
That's a good question, man. You know, like they're gonna have to find like the staff of Moses or something.
It may be actually.
Well, in the
Uh,
Dresden Files, they use the nails and they forge them into swords, and that's
Yeah,
how they fight demons and stuff. So I don't know if there's something similar or what. I don't know.
man, I gotta get back into reading the Dresden Files. You know,
Two
they
books dropped this year or last year.
you know, and because I stopped early on, I stopped at like book 3, I believe. So I'm definitely gonna have to get back into that.
Right when Michael comes in, that's one of the guys. That's one of the sword holders.
That's the Paladin, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. I know where that's at. Yeah, I started reading that, and you know, and that's about where I stopped. I don't know. I guess life just got in the way. Like, but yeah, you know, a lot of overlap between those books and this series in a way. I guess because they're very much the same type of series. And I imagine if you like this show, you'd love the Dresden Files.
Spencer, you've read all the Dresden Files except the
Yes.
last two. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Do you think that the showrunner maybe is into the Dresden Files?
I would imagine at least a little bit. Just the way it's shot, the way it's done, a lot of the reference material that they've used, a lot of it hits close to home as far as what's happened in those books. But yeah, I don't know that he would have to be, but I think that he at least read some of the same material that maybe Butcher did.
It's exactly. I agree with Spencer because there's been a lot of fiction written about these particular relics and scenarios that are going on in this show, and him and Jim Butcher, they may be pulling from the same place, or he could be a fan because you know the Dresden Files have been around for a while. So
Yeah.
you
I
know.
think he perhaps he's a fan of Berserk, the Dresden Files, and Bloodborne. Those are
I honestly would not be surprised.
a lot of info. Those three things I just mentioned. Yeah, I see a lot of elements of them in this series in a good way, in a great way, in fact. What else? So yeah, next week we get Hell Priest versus War Priest. That should be an awesome showdown. Anything? Let me see here. Anything else regarding episode number 7, the glass box? About yeah. Any other thoughts?
No. I was going to bring up Dresden Files, but that came up kind of naturally. So no, nothing else.
Well, you know, I just want to say I'm still very curious because it seems like you know now that the antagonists have gotten a little more familiar with Marche, it seems like they have a plan for her. So I'm curious where that's going to go. You know, because I don't feel like it's just the sort of thing like they're just promising her. Because the way he spoke to her as if he viewed, you know, the rest of the town folks as beneath her. Is the thing. You know, that was his thought. You know, and it seems to me like he feels like she would legitimately fit in their order. You know, so I could see if we get a season 2, especially given the way that things transpired and there's this heavy fog, so they don't know, and everyone's in a panic, so they don't know that Marche didn't leave that church with them. Like, so if we get a season 2, you know, Paco and Marche will likely get their divorce. Marche will be inducted into this order, and yet she now owns like half the town now due to her divorce with Paco, and I'm interested to see how that plays out if those things happen.
Yeah, I absolutely. I really, really hope we get a second season of this. Like I said, there has not been one announced. There's a couple shows we're watching now that it's like, man, I hope there's another season, but sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. A good example of not getting one is Lovecraft Country. As of now, I don't think it's going to happen, and it bums me out because it really set up a second season, you know. But hopefully this one gets one, and if it doesn't, let's just, you know, hopefully next week is a great great ending. So all right, I think that's about it. All right, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.